Okay, the Aztec Siren Deck was recently released, and it is the first deck on the scooter market to feature a 6-wide extrusion deck plate. And it has been gathering a lot of hype from scooter riders all around the globe. I recently purchased one from Shop ECX, so I figured I'd talk a little bit about it and some of the pros and cons and how I feel about it, etc. Long before this deck's release, it has been talked about from everybody in the scooter community who cares at all about anything larger than a 5-wide scooter deck. It was posted and teased about on many people's Instagrams. A lot of people just noticed that people were riding bigger Aztec decks, like Logan Fuller was riding one. A few other Aztec riders were riding them as well. There was also a lot of pictures of people with their foot on a piece of an extrusion that hadn't had a head tube welded to it, and it was clear that it was a 6-wide deck just because of how much it took up of someone's foot. I asked Dan Barrett for a photo that I remember seeing a long time ago. He sent me one that I hadn't actually seen before, and it was just both of his feet on a 6-wide deck. He said it was taken in late January, so that's very early on. I think that's January 2016. So it has been in the works for a while. Dom definitely took his time to make sure it was the best product that he possibly could release, and it definitely shows. I thought I'd do kind of an overview or review on it. I don't really like review videos that much because I feel like a lot of people who review scooter parts don't really give you a lot of information, so I wanted to kind of just talk about everything that I think is at all important. I did have a chance to measure the exact specs while I was in ECX, and it's not quite a 6-wide and it's not quite 23 long. Which I'm actually not upset about at all. It's about 5.9 to 5.95 inches wide by 22.5 or 22.75 inches long. And I wasn't upset by that just because that means that Dom definitely thought about what are the perfect ratios of width to length and what are the perfect actual widths for this new deck that's much wider than a 5-wide deck. I definitely think that he probably had a lot of pressure put on him to make a full 6-wide deck, and maybe he thought that that just wasn't right, and maybe that the 5.9 felt just a little better than the 6, which I completely understand. The sides of the deck do slightly taper in, so it isn't a full 6-wide or 5.9 inches wide on the bottom. It's about 5.5 inches wide, maybe even 5.6. And then that's just because when you're taking a tight turn, the bottom of the deck on the sides won't scrape the concrete or the pavement or whatever you're riding on. Which is good because that's the main thing I was concerned about with riding the Siren Deck. Other than width and length differences between the Fountain and the Siren, the head tube is a little shorter on the Siren. The Siren also has a little bit more nose blunt room. It sticks out a little farther, so the wheelbase is a little bigger. So it may measure as a 22.5, but it really feels like a 23. The head tube angle on a Fountain deck is 82.5, while the head tube angle on a Siren deck is 83 or 83.25, something like that. It might be a little steeper than an 83, so it does feel much better than a Fountain deck just because the bars sit way more in front of you. It is more like a street-oriented deck, clearly. You can do a lot of combo tricks on it. I managed to get a bar whip. I'm not very good at bar whips, so it took me a while, but still got it same time it usually takes me to get a bar up here at the skate park. But I don't do many bris anymore, but I did try to throw a bri on this, and I almost landed it first try. I got one foot on it, and I was like very surprised just because I didn't think it would come around as easy as it did. But it came right around, and then I just got way too lazy and didn't want to do another bri, so I didn't. So it is very light. It is I think it's around 4 pounds, which is, it's lighter than a Space, but then again, it's a little heavier than a Fountain. It's definitely going to be heavier than a TSI, but it's going to be stronger than a TSI, more reliable, and cheaper than a TSI. Those are definitely some of the perks. It isn't very expensive. It's around $200. So, I mean, for a huge deck, for the biggest deck on the market, $200 isn't asking much just because there are decks around $275, $250, $225. All those kind of price ranges. If you need an upgrade and you're thinking about trying it out, and maybe you have a big foot or you're a tall person, I definitely recommend trying it. Trash trucks. I wear an 11.5 size shoe, so my foot, when I straighten my feet out, instead of being more skateboard stance, if I kind of straighten my feet out so they're almost pointing forward, my foot sits entirely on the deck extrusion. So it feels really comfy when you're doing like certain manual tricks, or even when you're just cruising around. It feels so good. It feels really great. I didn't think it would be as mind-blowing, I guess. Not mind-blowing, but I didn't think it would be as industry-changing as it is, because it's very different. It feels really good. If it was any shorter, it'd be way too short, and if it was any longer, it'd be way too long. So I definitely think it's the perfect size. because you can make a 6 wide, but it really does depend on the length as well, and head tube angle and foot space and all those other dimensions. For his first shot at the 6, it's a phenomenal deck. It feels great. I love riding it. It made me love scootering again, even though I already do love scootering. It's like it renewed my love for scootering. So thanks, Dom. It's about 4.1 to 4.2 pounds. It doesn't feel any heavier than the native deck I was previously riding. It actually feels lighter somehow. I don't know how that is. I think it's just because it's such a large deck, but it's still so light. And I was very surprised at that. I'm not much of a weight weenie, but I do like to be in the middle. I don't really like a super light deck, but I don't like a super heavy deck either. I kind of like to be somewhere in the middle. I like it to slide, but I also like to be able to do like combo tricks like bar whips and stuff like that. Something that stood out to me about the Siren deck is that it's a very comfortable scooter deck to ride, not only doing tricks, but just cruising around. I wear a pretty big shoe, so it makes you feel very comfortable riding a scooter. It almost kind of reinvented how I rode a scooter just because it feels so brand new and so comfortable. I always felt kind of crunched up on a 5 wide deck, and I didn't realize how much I felt claustrophobic on a 5 wide deck until I rode the 6, and I felt so comfortable. It feels like you can ride the way you want to ride a scooter if you have like a big foot or if you're just a big person in general. Of course, 50/50s really stick out to me. I love doing 50s, and it's a completely different trick on this deck. You lock into them so much better because you'll go into a 50, and even if you slide out of the 50 a little bit, you can like readjust yourself and get back into the 50, which is never something I've ever been able to do on a 5 wide deck or even like a 5.1 like the native. It's just like as soon as you get into this 50, you can like slide out and slide back in because of how much room there is. It's almost like readjusting yourself on a board slide, but you're in a 50 this time. Feels great on rails too. I wasn't very surprised about that. So whether or not to buy this deck, if you click this video and you're really thinking about buying the Siren deck, of course I think you should. It feels really comfortable. It's a really fun deck to ride. I think it goes without saying that if you're in the market for this deck, it's a very fun deck to ride, and I think you should try it out. It's not nearly as expensive as some other decks in the market. It's only $200, and a lot of decks in the market right now are nearing $300. So I definitely think it's a good price for a deck. Especially for its size and how new it is and all the new features that this deck has. It made me really enjoy scootering in a different way because like when I ride that deck, I'm like, oh, I ride scooters because I like to ride scooters, not to impress anyone, not to do crazy tricks, just because scootering feels good. It really reminded me that scootering is something that should make you feel good and make you feel healthy and make you feel like you're having fun, and because you are having fun, you know? Like, I don't know, I have a lot of fun with this scooter deck. It made me like scootering a lot more, which is something I didn't think I could do. Anyway, thank you for watching. Glad you tuned in. I think I'll have a video coming soon about something I've been seeing on Instagram a lot recently, so a little different than this, more like the other style of videos that I've been doing. So, thanks for watching. I'll wrap it with that.